أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah again. It's good to see you all again. It's been a while, alhamdulillah. Who can give us a brief recap of a reminder of why we're here? Not in the kind of, philosophical ikhlas sense, but literally why we're here, what we are discussing today. What have you been discussing in the last few weeks? Rights of parents, yeah. The Book of Manners, okay. Imam al-Bukhari's al-Adab al-Mufrad, right? And the first book, so to speak, the first kitab is on the parents. Imam Bukhari, he appears he went from the most important thing, most important people to show righteousness and good conduct towards, and then i.e. the parents, and then the next book, the next chapter is Kitab Silatul Rahim, going beyond the parents to Silatul Rahim. Now, if you just, all we know right now is we're supposed to be discussing Silatul Rahim. Now, what are the immediate things that come to mind that you would expect to be discussed in, if somebody's making a chapter in a book, right, of manners and how to act and etiquettes, and you title a chapter, the chapter of Silatul Rahim, right? What do you expect to include there? Being merciful, okay. Just from a macro level, first of all, you'd want to know what it means, right? Silatul Rahim. I didn't translate it for a reason. So that's one thing we want to obviously cover. Right? What does it mean? Anyone want to tell us what it means? Yeah?
Being kind to your relatives.
Being kind to your relatives. Okay, good. Anyone else? Generally your akhlaq, okay. Anyone else? What does Silatul Rahim mean? Bonding. So Sila, it can mean to bond, to connect, right? It's from similar words, wasila, a means, or some kind of connection, right? Rahim, Silatul Rahim. What does Rahim mean? Pardon? Womb? Womb. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It means womb, right? Now, what does this mean? The connection of the womb. Is this thing on? Connection to your blood relatives, right? Now the womb, it's a supernatural thing, and I mean that quite literally, right? Because we have the natural physical world, yeah. We have the material that we engage with, kind of our main senses engage with directly. Your body is made of some physical cells, tissues, organs, and so forth. But there's also another thing which is not part of this nature that is included in our bodies. What's that? There's something beyond the natural physical. The soul, the ruh. Yeah? The ruh is in some way connected to ourselves. Right? We don't want to get too esoteric or whatever here, but the ruh is something beyond the physical, that every one of us, right, has a relation with, has, part of us somewhere inside, outside. Allah knows, it's a different kind of dimension. However, at what point, why do we say basically that the womb, the rahim, is something supernatural? What has that got to do with the ruh? What has the womb got to do with the ruh, the spiritual kind of world? At which point in our lives is the ruh paired with the physical? It's blown into the child during its development in the womb. So the womb, and I think this is pretty much something in many different cultures, not just amongst Muslims, but every wisdom tradition. If you really reflect, right, on the human being, on societies, on humanity, they'll realize that there has to be a special respect given to this part of the body, right, the womb, because it's in this place where the physical world meets something which will never die. Have you ever thought of it like that? Our bodies will die. These cells, these tissues, the physical stuff is going to die, and there will be a new type of resurrection afterwards. But our ruh is the thing that is eternal from the point of it being created. When it was created, after that Allah said, this is going to stay forever. Now the ruh is the womb is the nexus, is the cross, the intersection between the finite, mortal, a physical world, and something which is unseen, the spiritual, something which is eternal. And this is why I'm saying the ruh, the womb is something supernatural. When it has a physical element, you study it and so forth. But we're not talking about literally the physical cells and tissues here when we say rahim. We're talking about a bond which is through something sacred, which is through something more than just the physical. Right? Now the sila of the rahim, the connections of the rahim, are your relatives. Right? The sila of rahim. And we've all heard, this phrase, silatul rahim, or kind of derivations of that, right? In different hadith, in khutbahs and so forth. We often say, the khatiba would often say, the ayah, Ya ayyuhan nas, ittaqu rabbakum alladhi tasa'aluna bihi wal arham. Inna Allaha kana alaykum raqiba. Right, O people, fear your Lord, the one whom you ask through والأرحام يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. Right, so fear your Lord who created you from one soul and created from it its mate and dispersed from both of them many men and women, and fear Allah through whom you ask one another, and be careful of the connections of the womb. Right? Indeed, Allah is ever over you an observer. Likewise, the Prophet ﷺ, when he first came to Medina, right, what was the first piece of advice that he gave? And this is perhaps, it might be a bit surprising to some. It was surprising to me when I first heard this hadith, and when I looked into this notion of Silatul Rahim. The Prophet ﷺ, he's coming as a de facto leader, like the Prime Minister, the President of this new entity, this new state of Medina. And his first address, Abdullah ibn Salam radiallahu anh, he narrated, that loads of people would go from Medina to the outskirts to wait for this new prophet of God, right? He was like a Jewish scholar. He was like a rabbi, one of the biggest scholars among them. And he said, I want to go and have a look for myself, who this new so-called messenger of God is. And then when he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he famously said, "What? فَعَرَفْتُ أَنَّ وَجْهَهُ لَيْسَ بِوَجْهِ كَاذِبٍ." When I just saw his face, I recognized this is not the face of a liar. And the first thing he said, when people in throngs and throngs were gathering around him, he said, أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ أَفْشُوا السَّلَامِ وَأَطْعِمُوا الطَّعَامِ وَصِلُوا الْأَرْحَامِ وَصَلُّوا بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّاسُ النِّيَامِ تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ بِالسَّلَامِ. O people, this is Prophet ﷺ's address, 4 very concise instructions, right? O people, spread salams, spread the salam, i.e. literally the greeting, salam, and also the meaning behind it, right? Peace, safety, security, mutual kind of cooperation and so forth. Spread the salam, وَأَطْعِمُوا الطَّعَامِ, feed one another, right? Feed food. وَصِلُوا الْأَرْحَامِ, and join the ties of the womb. Join your ties of kinship. وَصَلُّوا بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّاسُ نِيَامٍ, and he said what we would probably regard as the first thing, 4th, and pray at night when people are asleep. Right, your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your intimate connection with, private connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though all of these things are to connect you with Allah as well, but the ritual act of worship, right, he mentioned last. تَدْخُلُ الْجَنَّةَ بِسَلَامٍ. What will happen if you do this? You'll enter paradise without any obstacles, without any harm, and safety and security and peace. So, what we give priority to, what we regard as important, right, in Islam, like what we think are the main parts of Islam, this is determined or influenced by many things. Our personal upbringing, maybe our personality type, our culture, the political climate where we live, right? If somebody is living in like a repressive regime, then political activism is understandably going to be kind of down on the list of priorities, that people just absorb from the culture around them. If they live in an area where there's a lot of, poverty, they might think, feeding people and alleviating poverty is very important, a big part of Islam. So our cultural and political kind of norms, right? So that's why it's quite important for us to, as much as possible, take a step back and look at what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam put as a priority, in terms of if you were to really quickly and on a macro level describe Islam to someone, what things would you mention? Yeah. So for some of us it would be maybe the 5 pillars of Islam, which is good. The beard, halal meat. Yeah, imagine you're giving a talk to like an RE assembly or something in school. These are the things you probably talk about. But we find in this chapter, right, and others, that the Prophet ﷺ, when he's asked similar questions, general, macro level questions, and because Allah in the Qur'an as well, he ﷺ is mentioning Silatul Rahim as way up on the list of priorities, which is it might be surprising sometimes, right? So for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says remember in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says إن الله لا يستحيي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعودة فما فوقها. Indeed, Allah is not, shy or timid to present an example of a mosquito or something smaller than it. فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا المثل هذا مثلا. As for those who have believed, they know that it's the truth from their Lord. But as for those who disbelieve, they say, what did Allah intend by this example? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. He, with these examples, with these, some ayat of the Qur'an even we can say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides whom He wills and He lets to go astray and misguides some people. With the same ayah, the same example given, the same guidance is given to two people. One will be guided by it, one will be sent astray with it. وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. And the only one who is sent astray with it is one who is already a fasiq, a rebellious person, a sinful person. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that person. What kind of person will be misguided by the Qur'an? And you can imagine maybe a murderer, maybe an alcoholic or something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يَنْقُضُونَ عَهْدَ اللَّهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مِيثَاقِهِ. The one who breaks the covenant with Allah after contracting it. وَيَقْطَعُونَ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ أَنْ يُوصَلْ. Yeah. Second, let's mention the one who cuts, that breaks that which Allah has ordered to be connected. Right? And a big part of this is the connections of the Rahim, Silatul Rahim. وَيُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And he spreads corruption on earth. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. It is those who are the losers. Right? So these are things, and there are many ayat like this. I'm not going to carry on laboring the point. The point is, this is something Allah and His Messenger ﷺ showed great importance to. Right? Joining ties between human beings. Right? Now, Silatul Rahim is made of two words, Sila and Rahim. Sila, we said, is to join. Rahim is the womb, i.e. the connections based on the womb. But are there any other questions you would think that, imagine if you're Imam Bukhari now, you're looking for a hadith to populate this chapter. What types of questions would you want answered? Is the question clear? Just kind of just hypothetically, what things would you expect, right, answers to? What? Imagine if you're giving you want to teach your children about this. What things would you, apart from just going to this chapter in al-Mufrad and reading out, what things would you want the child to learn?
What was the chapter again?
Silatul Rahim, right? Yeah. So who is the Rahim? Because didn't we just say that Allah created everyone from one man and one woman? Right? With the exception of, I think, no one. Even Isa alayhi salam, he came from a woman. Right? Every single human being, not just today, but wherever ever lived, has always been, is related to each other through the Rahim. Is this what it means? Right? So this is a good question. Who is the Rahim? This is one of the things we want to know. Right? Good. What else? How to do it. What does it even mean? My cousin, okay, he's my Rahim. I'm supposed to join that tie? Okay, he's joined. It's already joined. I've acknowledged that you're my cousin. Is that what it means? Yeah? So those are the two main kind of questions, the most immediate questions. Right? You think of who are the Rahim. and what does it mean to join that tie. And there are hadith in this chapter that talk about this thing, and other subtle points as well that maybe we're not even aware of. But al-Imam al-Bukhari, he brought these very beneficial narrations for us to reflect over these. Right? Now, it's always good practice to, when starting like a chapter, to get a quick overview of the different subheadings in the chapter. Right? So we'll quickly just at a glance, because as you know, Imam Bukhari, not only does he put titles for the chapters, so let's go from the top up. So the individual hadith, right? It might have a name in some books, but normally maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 hadith are brought together, and that is given a subheading of bab, right? Chapter of so and so. And it's through these chapter headings we find Imam Bukhari's interpretations and his kind of hints that he wants the reader to take away from this, right? And so you have different babs, different abwab under the main big chapter, which we call Kitab, Silatul Rahim, right? So among these kind of smaller chapters, we have Bab Wujub Silatul Rahim, the chapter of the obligation of joining the ties of the womb. We also have general Bab Silatul Rahim, right? The chapter of the ties of kinship, and different ahadith under that. Bab Fadli Silatul Rahim, the chapter of the excellence of joining ties of the womb. The next chapter we have Bab Man Wasala Rahimahu Ahabbahu Ahluhu, right? The chapter of, and this is takes it's taken from the actual wordings of the hadith, but we're looking at it at a quick macro level, right? The chapter of whoever joins the ties of kinship, Allah will make His people love him. Yeah, subhanallah. Next bab birrul aqrab fal aqrab. Bab birrul aqrab fal aqrab. The chapter of being dutiful, showing kindness, righteousness to the closest, then after that the next closest and the next closest. Right, so describing the question that we discussed a minute ago, who is the Rahim, right? A hint into that. And then Bab لا تنزل الرحمة على قوم فيهم قاطع الرحم. The chapter of mercy will not descend on a people among whom is someone who severs the ties of kinship. Right? So rewind for a moment. When we were thinking on a macro level, what are the topics you'd think of when structuring a discussion about Silatul Rahim, for example? You want to talk about the opposite. Right? What does it look like to get it wrong? Right? And what are the consequences of getting it wrong, of severing those ties? And then likewise we have Bab Ithmi Qati'ir Rahim, the chapter of the sinfulness, right, the wrongness of the one who splits or disconnects the ties of kinship. Right, just a few left to just quickly finish off. So the punishment of the one who cuts off ties of kinship in this world, and the one who maintains the ties of kinship reactively, not proactively. Alright? And then we have someone some chapters, some ahadith about maintaining ties of kinship with an evil person, with a wrongdoing relative. Right? This is something many people ask about. And maintaining ties of kinship with an outright, disbeliever or a polytheist is included in that as well. And final chapter in this kitab, the importance of knowing who your rahim is, right? Learning the lineage and so forth. So that is a quick kind of overview of this chapter, Silatul Rahim. I haven't got that many ahadith, maybe 30 something, around 30 hadith. And let's start with just the first hadith then, that's in this chapter. I think, we have enough time. Any questions so far before we steam ahead? Any questions, comments? Okay. Yep. Yes. So that's a few ahadith down in the general chapter of Silatul Rahim, where the word Rahim comes from, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that I have taken the word Rahim from my own name, Rahman, right? Showing its high, lofty status, right? And there's some hadith, maybe next time we'll get to those hadith, inshallah. So the first hadith in the chapter, Kulayb ibn Manfa' reported, قال جدي يا رسول الله من أبر قال أمك وأباك وأختك وأخاك ومولاك الذي يلي ذاك حق واجب ورحم موصولة. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, who should I be most dutiful towards? Who should I be most dutiful towards? Then the Prophet ﷺ said, your mother and your father, your sister and your brother, وَمَوْلَاكَ الَّذِي يَلِي ذَاكَ. Mawla here means close, closeness, right? So the Prophet ﷺ is giving an order of showing the most bir towards, showing the most dutifulness towards your mother and father, then your sister and your brother, then whoever comes after that in closeness. Right? Haqqun wajibun. This right, their rights are obligatory on you, and warahimun mawsulatun, and these are the rahim, the connections of the womb that are to be held closely connected. Right? This is similar to the hadith that you've already covered, I think, in the past. The third hadith in the whole book, and also later on coming in the same chapter, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُوصِيكُمْ بِأُمَّهَاتِكُمْ ثُمَّ يُوصِيكُمْ بِأُمَّهَاتِكُمْ ثُمَّ يُوصِيكُمْ بِآبَائِكُمْ ثُمَّ يُوصِيكُمْ بِالْأَقْرَبِ فَالْأَقْرَبِ. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying, Allah is admonishing you or warning you or advising you concerning your mothers. Then he said it again, then after that he advises you, admonishes you, advises you concerning your mothers. Again, repeated, because of the station of the mother, which you all know, from the last chapter. Then Allah is advising you, admonishing you with regards to your fathers, and then al-aqrab fal-aqrab, then the next closest, then the next closest. Right? So the rahim, this first hadith in the chapter, Al-Imam al-Bukhari is laying out the simple fact that to some extent, yeah, you can say everyone is related to you, every human being, but when it comes to the righteousness, when it comes to the amount of effort that you put in, and the quality of the kindness you show to everyone and the priorities, there is a kind of a gradual reduction with how far away they get. And this is a principle anyway, that al-aqrabin awla bil ma'ruf, right? That people that are close to you take precedence when it comes to doing any good, right? Not to say you do evil to anyone else, but it's natural, and it's therefore something, part of the Sharia, to pay extra close attention to those whom you share a tighter bond with, right? So, for example, and this is something we shouldn't be ashamed of, or shy about when it comes to, for example, Muslim, the connection among Muslims, that you may feel closer to a Muslim who is thousands of miles away than you do to maybe a non-Muslim who is geographically closer to you, because that circle is stronger, that bond between you and the Muslim far away is stronger than the bond between you and someone else geographically on the same city or postcode or whatever than you, right? It's not saying there's no duty that you have towards your neighbor, but the duty towards your brother and sister, it's just that important, right? So you have circles, the inner circle. You can say, imagine if your family member and the person is a Muslim, and maybe they're your neighbor as well, right? So you share these different bonds that make you tighter and tighter with that person. And then maybe somebody's in your locality and he's a Muslim, so you have that connection to them. And the further and further someone goes out, the less pressing and urgent the connection with that person is. Now, when it comes to showing, a connection, showing kindness and so forth, yes, there are some ahadith that we'll cover, but just while we're on the topic of man abar, who should I show dutifulness towards? What does dutifulness mean? Right? What does it mean to show bir, show ihsan, show a sila with someone? Right? Is this something explicitly determined in the Sharia? Anyone want to?
I think it depends, but with the parents, I would say like listening and obeying,
Mm-hmm.
and that is good. Maybe that people of your similar age to be kind to them, like this.
So that's one obvious one. If your parents ask you to do something, then obey them, right? And these things are, in doing so, obviously we're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in obeying the parents, and as you remember from previous weeks. So someone who maybe your brother close in age to you, then it's showing kindness to them, right? Anything else? What does it mean to love and respect? Yeah. What does it mean to show dutifulness or to have a connection with someone? Mercy. Yeah. Supporting them. Okay, so here's a clear one: giving them financial assistance. Right. This is an example that is going to come up later. Supporting them in any other kind of physical way, if they need a hand moving house or whatever, right? Just simple things. And these things are determined not necessarily by the nusus, although you do have some ahadith and ayat where specific things are mentioned. But in something like this, something like Silatul Rahim, this is something which is very broad, right? And its concretization, its exact kind of manifestation may change from time to place, may change from culture to culture, right? In some cultures, I mean, especially now, with these, this is something, no one would disagree that part of maintaining ties of kinship is, talking to your relatives, even if it's by phone, even if it's by whatever modern communication methods. That it's seen, especially in our culture, that to ignore someone's call repeatedly and to not reply to someone's, whatever messages, that is seen as a bad manners towards that person, right? And it's good manners to keep a connection, to visit people, to show kindness to them. And obviously those things that did happen in the Prophet ﷺ's time, many of them are also relevant to us today. Giving gifts to one another, visiting them when they're sick, fulfilling the basic rights and going beyond that, right? So حق واجب وصلة موصولة ورحم موصولة. So the right, there is an obligation of a right and certain rights, and the fact that it has to be connected. So when we ask the question, what needs to be done in order to, what is, for example, fard, and what is the sunnah aspect of it? What is the obligatory stuff that I need to do with these people, and what is the extra? One way is looking at, the closest person to you, mother and father, you have to do certain things that you don't have to do to others. But another way of looking at it is, the most pressing thing that we need to do is keep that connection alive. Keep that connection, that is obligatory. And showing other types of ihsan, going above and beyond the call of duty, that they say is the more you do, the better it is for you, for that relationship. But the bare minimum is to maintain that relationship, and that is just a general encouragement for wanting good for that person, trying to get good for them, and generally preventing harm from them and pushing away any danger or harm from them. We'll quickly mention the next hadith, inshallah, and then conscious of time. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh said that when the ayah was revealed, قال لما نزلت هذه الآية وأنذر عشيرتك الأقربين قام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فنادى يا بني كيب بن لؤي أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار يا بني عبد المناف أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار يا بني هاشم أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار يا بني عبد المطلب أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار يا فاطمة بنت محمد أنقذي نفسك من النار فإني لا أملك لك من الله شيئا غير أن لكم رحيما سأبلهما ببلالها. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh said, when the ayah was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and warn your near relatives, the Prophet ﷺ stood up and he called out saying, O Banu Ka'b ibn Lu'ay, save yourselves from the fire. O Banu Abdi Manaf, save yourselves from the fire. O Banu Hashim, save yourselves from the fire. O Banu Abdul Muttalib, save yourselves from the fire. The different names of the broader tribe that the Prophet ﷺ, different circles you can say that the Prophet ﷺ was related to. And then he said, O Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, save yourself from the fire. For I do not have anything for you in respect to Allah except for the fact that you have ties of kinship that I will maintain. Right? So this is the next hadith in the chapter. We can discuss its explanation inshallah next time. I think we reached 40 minutes. So yeah, we can say we spoke about 2 hadith, but the first one is usually going a bit slow, and then next week onwards inshallah we can go into more details of these hadith al-Sharif. Are there any comments, questions? No? So we'll call it a day then inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت واستغفرك واتوب اليك. السلام عليكم.